it's Charles Barkley with Wayfair. It's outdoor season, and my patio setup better be ready to play. That's where Wayfair wins. Patio seating, umbrellas, and grills, all delivered fast and easy. Shop wayfair.ca now.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
The Elias Makos Show. News Talk Radio. CJAD 800.
Welcome back to the Elias Makos Show, third hour of the program. Now, every Monday at this time, we take a look at the cost of common goods and services. And for many of us, pets are more than just animals, they're family. Just like feeding the rest of the family, the cost of pet food can add up quickly. Budget kibble, premium brands, raw diets, specialty formulas. There are more options than ever before, ones that remain in a bucket, others that need to go into a fridge, and a wide range of price tags to go along with them. So what's a fair price to pay to keep our four-legged friends healthy and happy? That's what we're looking at on this week's edition of How Much Things Should Cost. The cost of pet food. Let's head over to Chuck Altman, owner of Little Bear Pet Supplies. Chuck, welcome to the program.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, how much should we be spending on pet food? How do you answer that question?
Well, that's a tough one. I mean, the first thing is you don't want to bankrupt yourself. So you got to look at your lifestyle and your budget and figure out what fits for you. Some people have made a little bit of changes, to their own lifestyle recently, as we've had, a lot of budgetary issues. So it's really tough to put an exact dollar figure on it.
But are there options at every price point where you can say, you know what, you're taking care of your pet?
100%. 100%. I mean, not everybody needs to spend $180 a bag per month, on their dog food, but you have to look at things that you're comfortable with. Number one is the ingredient panel. If there's anything in there that you're not comfortable feeding your pet, it's not worth the savings. Number two is your pet's diet. Certain pets need specific foods. They're on a restricted diet. They have allergies. They have certain health conditions. So there's always something within every budget that'll fit your lifestyle. It's just really what's more important for you. And the other factor is where it's made and how it's made, like the level of processing and if there's any import fees to get it here.
And, on where it's made, in fact, the last segment we did, Chuck, just before the 11 o'clock news, we were speaking to someone from Les Produits du Québec, and we were talking about, just substituting a purchase that would be from, another country with a purchase in Quebec. Are there good Quebec-made pet food options out there?
There are some excellent ones, but the problem is that not all the Quebec-made products are Quebec-owned companies. So it's what's more important for you. Is the product from here more important, or is it the parent company from here more important? Like recently, Natural Balance opened a plant in Drummondville, and they make all their LID diets here. But then there's a company like Carnivore that's Ontario-owned that does half their production here in Quebec as well.
Interesting.
Those are both excellent options, but then you have to decide whether it's, locally sourced, locally made, or locally owned, and what's the most important for you.
So how do you decide if a more expensive pet food is worth it?
Right off the bat, we go to the first thing is the ingredient panel. But then the second most important thing is if your pet's going to eat it, because it doesn't matter the price. If your pet's not eating it, it's not helping you at all.
So the taste test matters, obviously, right?
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have pets, you have kids, you have other people in the house, you can't force feed them to eat anything, right?
Mm-hmm. What about halvesies here? I'm just thinking, like I would feed my dog. I had a dog for 14 and a half years. He lived a long life, and I fed him, what I thought was, a fancier kibble, like a dry kibble. Right. And I'd supplement it and make sure there's, always some sort of, if there was extra meat, like we had salmon, he'd get some salmon, that kind of stuff. I do the supplements, that kind of thing. Is that something we should look at? Like we have a base, which is our kibble, which may be more affordable, and then we supplement it in other ways?
Whether it's kibble, freeze-dried, canned, frozen, it's always great to add fresh product. I mean, I always say it's better to eat produce than to eat products. So if, 25 to 50% of the bowl is a fresh product, you're already ahead. You just have to make sure that the food is appropriate for your pets. You don't want to be putting raw onions in there,
Yeah. And what about the stuff now that I'm seeing more and more often in stores where the pet food's refrigerated? To me, that's going to add cost and a whole bunch of other factors here. What's your take on that growing trend?
Well, so there's two parts. There's the refrigerated and there's the frozen. So the storing of it is actually more expensive, but the production is less expensive because it's one less level of production that they need to do. So a lot of times even a raw food will be cheaper than a freeze-dried food because it's the same food that didn't have to go through the freeze-drying process. The only benefit to that is that now the freeze-dried food you can just keep in your pantry. You don't have to worry about keeping it refrigerated or frozen. So for long trips, car rides, visits, camping, stuff like that, it's a lot easier to just use a freeze-dried product. But, I mean, a fresh product is always better. But they're not all great. Some of them are overly processed. Like a piece of salami is definitely not as good as roast beef for us, right? So same with them too. Like I said, you always have to look at that ingredient panel and see what's actually in there. Just because it says fresh pet on it doesn't mean that it's all fresh ingredients.
We're with Chuck Altman. He's owner of Little Bear Pet Supplies, and we're talking about the cost of pet food here. There's a question, Chuck, that I always ask on this segment, whether we're talking about air conditioners or pet food today, and that is, do you get what you pay for? It seems like with pet food, that may not always be the case, but I'm curious as to your take on that.
Most of the time, yes, but like anything, if it's over-marketed, you're paying for that extra level, right? So if they're having TV commercials, billboards, and you're seeing it everywhere and about, that means they have quite a substantial marketing budget, and that has to come from somewhere. Whereas if it's a more local brand that you've never heard of before, good chances that they're putting more money into the product. So whether it's a fancy product or not, again, like I said, it always comes down to that ingredient panel.
Now, I have a note from a listener here who's listening to us talk. Say, I've got a cat, lived to 21 years old on Iams and Fancy Feast and Montreal City tap water. So I just wonder if you have a thought or two on, like, the big bulk commercial stuff. Can your pet be happy and healthy on that stuff?
Some can be. I mean, there's always the exception to the rule. I have a friend that's super slim, good toned body, eats nothing but McDonald's and drinks Coca-Cola all the time. If I did that, I'd be 300 pounds. So the health of the animal and the overall constitution of the animal comes into play there too. And there's always the exception to the rule. But in general, you get what you get what you give. So if you give a better diet, you'll get a longer living, happier animal. But that doesn't mean to say that if you do everything right, something else isn't going to happen.
Chuck, as all of us know, go to the grocery store to feed ourselves, feed our families, right? The cost of everything has gone up. I wonder if you have any suggestions for our listeners where the budget does matter on, how they can save money on pet food by still providing, great food, great health for their pets.
Well, you mentioned it earlier. You supplement a little bit with your scraps, your table scraps, the food that you've already purchased that you're using, that you're not using anymore. So instead of putting in the compost bag or out in the garbage bin, that fresh salmon, those trimmings that you're not eating, your animal will do great with those. You can always supplement with the stuff that you're not using yourself at home. Like I said, just be careful that those are foods that your animal can eat. I've
noticed, when I was buying pet food, like, okay, the one that has lamb is this price. The one that's salmon based is this price. So do you ever, if someone's on a budget and they come to you and say, hey, Chuck, I can't pay the $180 or the $120 on a bag, where do you direct them?
Well, then we would do the same that you were just talking about. If they can't afford the novel proteins like duck or lamb, you move over to something that's a bit more abundant like chicken or pork or fish. And there's no real difference there if the dog has no allergies or intolerances, or the cat. As long as they can digest the proteins are good. And what's always great, you can always supplement with a couple of eggs a couple times a week. I mean, that's an excellent protein, amazing vitamin and mineral source, and we kind of all have eggs in our fridge all the time.
Is that, would you do that raw or cooked eggs?
Depends on the animal. Yeah. You could do both. Raw egg, I wouldn't do it more than a couple times a week, but a cooked egg, you can throw some scrambled egg or quick fry or hard-boiled egg in there all the time. Also, hard-boiled egg is a pretty easy snack to bring around with you when you're traveling with the animal. Good protein boost, lots of vitamins and minerals.
Chuck, anything we didn't touch on that you think would be worthwhile before I let you go?
As long as you're feeding your pets regularly, giving them lots of fresh water, love, attention, care, like I said, as long as it fits in the budget, there's something for everybody out there.
And we don't need any premium water, right? The tap water will do at least.
Tap water actually is usually better, especially if you can filter it, depending where you live in the city. But bottled water, I mean, I wouldn't drink it myself either, you know?
All right, Chuck, going to leave it there. Thanks. You were great. Appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
That's Chuck Altman. He's owner of Little Bear Pet Supplies. When we return on the Elias Makos Show, a major Montreal film production bureau is shutting down. We'll get some reaction to that when we return. All right.
It's Charles Barkley with Wayfair. It's outdoor season, and my patio set up, that'll be ready to play. That's where Wayfair wins. Patio seating, umbrellas, and grills, all delivered fast and easy. Shop wayfair.ca now.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Listen, and you're there for heart-wrenching knockouts.
World's biggest stage.
And breathtaking triumph. 2026 FIFA World Cup. The knockout stage. Every match, every moment. Listen on TSN Radio. Join the globe on the road to the July 19th final. 2026 FIFA World Cup. Stream it all live on TSN Radio. Available on iHeartRadio.
Let's continue things here on the Elias Makos Show and turn our attention to the film industry, film production. Now, for decades, Montreal has been one of North America's premier destinations for film and television production. But a recent decision has many in the industry worried about what comes next. The closure of the photochemical film laboratory at MELS Studios marks the end of an era for filmmakers who continue to shoot on traditional film. A petition launched in response argues that once this specialized expertise and equipment disappear, they may be impossible to replace, potentially forcing Canadian productions to process their film outside of the country and weakening Montreal's reputation as a world-class production hub. Let's go now to the man behind that petition to find out what really is going on here. Michael Yaroshevsky is on the line, an associate professor in film production at Concordia University. Michael, welcome to the program.
Thanks. Pleasure to be here.
Listen, I'm of two minds on this. You know, like I consider myself a cinephile, and I love watching a good movie, and I love my acclaimed directors, and you know, I have a special spot in my heart for those that continue to want to shoot on film and do 70 millimeter showings in big theaters. I love that, but I'm also, you know, as someone who works in media, you know, technology changes, times change, and things are different now. So I go back and forth. How do you see this and this decision by MELS Studios?
So the point of the petition was to remind Quebecor, the owners of MELS, that film is still a big part of the film industry and film culture in Quebec. And I keep reminding people this, that they may or may not know that over the last 20 years, the Cannes Film Festival almost every year selects at least one film from Quebec, which is no small achievement. Now, nearly every one of those films is shot on celluloid and finished at MELS. Now, why is that? Look, we don't fetishize the container for the light and time. I'm not going to get too esoteric, but there's a reason why, and I'm not going to just talk about the heavy hitters like Spielberg and the Andersons and the guys behind Sinners or...
Yeah, or Christopher Nolan in the Odyssey,
sure,
right?
Yeah, all those people. But many small productions, I mean, we're talking about Quebec films, but also many, many films are still, if anything, are still shooting on film. If anything, if you look at Kodak's information, more and more film stock is being sold every year. I mean, when speaking about media, I mean, look at vinyl, right? I mean, try to press a vinyl record. You're going to have to wait for years because there's just a huge demand for it. So I think this is indicative of something else. And so to get back to the petition, I mean, I'll mention what I think it's indicative of in terms of how people are creating they're valuing analog technology for a particular reason. But the reason for MELS, I'm not, you know, I have no illusions that, you know, MELS have their reasons, and I don't have, you know, their budgets or the details. I just need to remind them that this is still a vital part of a particular, an unusually vibrant world center for film production.
So, but Michael, what would you say, you know, if they're saying, listen, we're losing money, We need to streamline things, and we can't just continue to lose money on this side of the business. If there's
the thing is, I'll just interrupt to say they're not really losing money because their lab is working full steam, all the time. So I think it's a question of they don't want to have to reinstall the lab because they're moving. I don't know exactly. I don't want to speak to. I'm not part of the negotiations. My real point in doing this is to shine a light on the importance and centrality of actual celluloid medium, and to make sure they don't do anything in a corporate way. I'm not implying that they would do this, but it's not uncommon for corporate technology to be scuttled before, when you shut it down. Yeah. We're not making money off of this, so no one else is going to be making money off this. So I know that somebody is going to open up another lab. I mean, there are smaller labs. There's the wonderful Niagara Custom Lab, which was in Toronto, now is in Renfrew, Ontario, but it's just not big enough to handle the volume that MELS does. And MELS is an excellent lab with excellent technicians, and it just is it can handle 20,000 feet a day. So my intention is to make sure the Quebecor realize that this is technology and know-how that needs to be preserved. So if there's somebody who comes along and wants to open another lab, which I know someone does, then let's donate or sell that technology rather than put it through a shredder, which is what often happens with technology which is proprietary to a particular corporate entity.
If this shuts down, if MELS shuts down this service, what are the ramifications? I mean, you mentioned that the small players could fill the void, and there's all types of questions there. But do you think this could lead to less Quebec films making their way to Cannes? Do you think there could be a really detrimental impact here on making good movies?
Well, I don't think that the criteria for being selected to Cannes is being shot on film. Mm-hmm. What it means when you do shoot on film is you treat time and the process differently. It pushes us to work in a different way, which is much more intense. So I think that's the reason why the tendency is for films shot on celluloid to be looked at. There is a certain amount of fetishization. People say, I'm shooting on film. I'm painting in gold. What are you painting? It doesn't matter. I'm painting in gold. That's not,
Yeah.
There is that for sure. And that's sort of rife in filmmaking generally, what camera you're using, what this, what that. So that's not really important. But the process of shooting on film changes the way you work. Mm-hmm. Every minute, every second is different than sort of a digital, essence, which doesn't have a body. This is like physical. You're making light a material thing on the film stock. It's very special. So, to wax rhapsodic, it's like, for me, it's, to be a little, it's the magical thing of the medium. Mm-hmm. I shoot digitally, and the majority of the things I shoot is digital, but I also shoot a lot of film. So I don't want that to disappear, and I'm neither, judging by the response of the people you see, to what extent it's important. I mean, within a week we had over 2,000 people. We're sort of edging on to 3,000. I mean, it's Quebec. It's a relatively small group of people, but you have people from the industry and outside of the industry, and the response speaks of a malaise with digital things and sort of the throbbing creatures of AI which are on the horizon. Everybody, you don't need anything to make moving images. And myself, I've played with AI, so-called filmmaking, and it's a tool. It will find its place, but it can't replace what you get.
Can I ask you, Michael? Because all those things. Well, when I hear you talk about it, boy, do I feel it here. And I know we can't speak to the ultimate motivations, right, of Quebecor in this circumstance. But can I ask you if you feel there could be a possibility? Part of this is about squeezing governments here for a little bit more cash. It is not lost on me when certain industries fall on tough times. And by the way, people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. Media is part of that. That what we've seen in the last few years, well, they go pleading to Quebec City or to Ottawa, and there are a few bucks available to try and save things like this. Do you think that's part of this here? Or do you think government needs to step up in order to help save this?
Well, we are in Quebec, we are in Canada, and we subsidize the arts heavily. So I don't think keeping MELS afloat is actually, or helping them transition to another location, if that's what the issue is a huge amount of money. Because I actually know that the lab works continuously. It's making money. The chemistry pays for itself, believe it or not, because you recycle the silver that is in color film stock and you sell it back to Kodak, and they give you the chemistry. So there's no cost there. There are costs for maintenance, and of course there's labor, but it's not. We're not talking astronomical sums here. So yeah, I think if subsidizing the arts is still a thing, which it is, then that's valid, considering MELS is such an excellent place and it has such an excellent track record for showing off Quebec culture globally. And the Cannes Film Festival is, well, it's kind of the summit of that.
Michael, where do I find your petition for the listeners here who want to add their signature?
So you'd have to go to my website. It's Y35 Studio, Y is in Yaroshevsky or Yankee 35studio.com. And if you click on my name, it'll take you to an email, which is linked to my Concordia website. So it's a little bit circuitous, but if you just go to Y35studio.com.
Y35studio.com. Michael, thanks for your time.
Thanks so much.
Michael Yaroshevsky, Associate Professor in Film Production at Concordia University. When we return, we're going to be speaking to the Consul General of the United States right here in Montreal. Robert P. Sanders is ending his run in the city, so we'll have a bit of an exit interview with him coming up next.
Missed something?
Subscribe to the Elias Makos Show podcast to catch up.
Available on iHeartRadio and wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, when we come back here, we're going to be speaking with Robert P. Sanders. He's Consul General for the United States here in Montreal. He's ending his run as Consul General in our city this week. So we're going to do a bit of an exit interview. We're going to ask him about his experience in Montreal. We'll talk about Canada-U.S. relations right now. Stick with us.
When news breaks,
heavy rain and thunderstorms are causing flooding in various areas
close to home.
The streets were full of water, abandoned vehicles.
Count on us.
Did you suffer any damage at all? Water damage, water infiltration?
Information you can trust when you need it.
Request is pumps.
The voice of the community. The voice of Montreal. News Talk Radio, CJAD 800. Time is valuable. Thanks for spending your morning with us. The Elias Makos Show on News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Elias Makos Show.
It's Charles Barkley with Wayfair. It's outdoor season, and my patio set up, that'll be ready to play. That's where Wayfair wins. Patio seating, umbrellas, and grills, all delivered fast and easy. Shop wayfair.ca now.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Listen, and you're there for heart-wrenching knockouts.
The world's biggest stage.
And breathtaking triumph. 2026 FIFA World Cup. The knockout stage. Every match, every moment. Listen on TSN Radio. Join the globe on the road to the July 19th final. 2026 FIFA World Cup. Stream it all live on TSN Radio. Available on iHeartRadio.
It's our pleasure to welcome Robert P. Sanders into our studios. He's Consul General at the US Consulate in Montreal. And this week, at the end of this week, he's ending his 3-year run as Consul General. And I've just been alerted to the fact that it was 3 years ago that we were your first interview.
That is
CJAD 800.
That is correct.
And now we're your last interview as you prepare to leave our fair city.
Indeed. Eye level of the symmetry is nice.
Well, first off, thanks for coming back.
Thank you for inviting me.
And Consul General, let me ask you, how have 3 years in Montreal gone for you?
They've gone really well. I mean, it's you always have mixed feelings at the end of a tour. Like I've loved my time here. And I'm sorry to go, but at the same time, you also recognize that's the way it is in the Foreign Service, and someone else is coming to replace you, so you have to go. But I've had a really great experience here, and I'm going to miss a lot.
It's Charles Barkley with Wayfair. It's outdoor season, and my patio set up, that'll be ready to play. That's where Wayfair wins. Patio seating, umbrellas, and grills, all delivered fast and easy. Shop wayfair.ca now.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Listen, and you're there for heart-wrenching knockouts.
The world's biggest stage.
And breathtaking triumph. 2026 FIFA World Cup. The knockout stage. Every match, every moment. Listen on TSN Radio. Join the globe on the road to the July 19th final. 2026 FIFA World Cup. Stream it all live on TSN Radio. Available on iHeartRadio.
things about Montreal.
Can I ask you, for the Foreign Service, is Montreal perceived as a plum assignment? Did you say I want to go to Montreal when you even came here? How did that all work?
Exactly. Yeah, it's a desirable assignment. So when I bid, we have a bidding process. Yeah. When I bid, there were 25 people bidding the year I bid to get to Montreal. So I'd say it's popular.
Great. And so you would say these 3 years have been fulfilling for you?
Absolutely. Some unexpected things, as always happens, but
okay. So
a good 3 years.
I want to get to some of the unexpected, okay? Because it's not lost on me that the last 3 years there have been a heck of a lot of demonstrations that go and target the U.S. facility downtown. You got the Consul General office right there on St. Catherine Street. And, this city at times, it's been prime for protests, right? Especially since October 7th, 2023. Sure. And, for people, they view Israel as the great Satan and U.S. is number 2 great Satan, and they'll come after you. How has that been, dealing with constant protests at your facilities?
Well, I mean, honestly, it's not unexpected. It happens at facilities around the world because the U.S. is often the target for things. Look, overwhelmingly, they're also peaceful, and we certainly respect the right for peaceful assembly. But we also have fantastic support from the Montreal Police. Station 20, Commandant Rivard, who's our commander for our station, takes great care of us. They often are aware when a protest is coming and gives us heads up. But we also we kind of expect it. It's okay for Montreal's a bit of a protest town. Lots of demonstrations happen here. We've also had some unexpected ones that have actually been sort of pro-U.S. With events that happened in Iran. There were actually groups of Iranian diaspora who came waving, both the old regime flag, the American flag, the Israeli flag. So, sometimes it's not because they're upset with us. Sometimes they're actually sort of showing support.
That's true. And I'm sure there's been a bit of a mixed bag as well on the Venezuelan front too, right? There are some Venezuelans that view.
Yes. Yeah. There have been some. Yeah. You get a range of opinions in that, folks who are happy with the policy and folks who are less happy with it.
Okay. Well, one thing that perhaps hasn't been a mixed bag, it's been on the US Canada front. Okay. Speaking of things that happen over 3 years, boy, the last year or so has been fairly contentious between the United States and Canada. You certainly know this. People don't view Donald Trump talking about 51st state doesn't go over very well here. We had a big elbows up movement, and you've seen the numbers tumble of Canadians going to visit the U.S. So I wonder how that has been, the current status here between Canada and the U.S. and how do you navigate that?
Well, I think that's it's a fair question. I think that's something that you have to navigate on a day-to-day basis. I will say day-to-day, the overwhelming majority of my encounters with Canadians that I encounter, whether it's here in Montreal or other parts of Canada, is overwhelmingly positive. Everyone has a story about their connection to the United States. That's one of the things that I think makes our relationship so unique. I'm the same. I have family in Canada. And so I think, every relationship has its bumps. I recognize that this is a particularly, different period of history with the U.S. and Canada, but I also think that this is we have a long relationship, and every relationship has its bumps and works through it. But I've not had a lot of outright hostility. I've had people who express concerns, things they're upset about. I understand that. That's my job. Is my job to hear that, to try to explain what I can to help them understand things. But the vast majority of people, particularly when we meet with the business community here, talk about the importance of the U.S. market, how critical it is to their long-term success, how they have these long-term relationships with suppliers and buyers in the United States, whether they're in the agricultural field, whether they're in the high technology field, whether it's aerospace. The connections are so deep, and most folks really want to keep that relationship and continue those relationships.
Now, perhaps there hasn't been anything overt, but has there been some more covert shunning, like any people that you normally would expect to hear from and see, who all of a sudden were nowhere to be found?
I mean, I think there's some of that. There are some folks that you had some regular engagements with that either tapered off that some of that is also the ebb and flow of relationships. Sometimes you just don't see people for some time. Someone I had thought that may have been the case with, I happened to reach out on something, immediately re-engaged, was happily to do so. Yeah. So it's hard to disaggregate what's, but I recognize some people are say, hey, we're going to take a step back.
What do you think the best way forward is to reboot the relationship?
I think it is those. I'm a very strong believer in the people-to-people part of the U.S.-Canada relationship because it isn't just a government-to-government relationship, more so than lots of countries. Yeah. And I think, particularly when I see institutions like whether it's an academic institution or a business and how much that they are engaged with partners on the other side of the border, I have confidence that those are things that are going to carry us through. And I think those are the things that continue to nurture. During my time here, we've seen several state trade delegations that have been led by governors or lieutenant governors or secretaries of commerce. And they all stress the importance of the Canadian market and how much they, value the relationships that they have and the jobs that are created on both sides of the border. And I've heard on the response of Canadians here, on Montrealers who've met these delegations, how pleased they are to see that these are continuing, that these kinds of engagements are still happening. So there is a real desire on both sides to continue a strong, deep partnership. We'll get there.
Now, we've had Ambassador Pete Hoekstra on this program. He's sat exactly where you've sat, and he's been vocal at times. I look at some of the media interviews he does, whether it's here on this station or other places, where he's been vocal at times about some of the frosty reception, particularly from Canadian politicians at times. And I look at that. Some premiers have been quite vocal when it comes to the United States. Do you think that there has to be half of some olive branch coming from this side of the border?
I think it's in everyone's interest to keep the doors open. Yes, I've certainly seen some of the frosty receptions. I will say it's not been the case in Quebec. That actually Quebec has been a pretty constructive partner. I think. You're
talking about this Quebec government?
Yeah, I mean with both Premier Legault and Premier Fréchette in both cases, they have been constructive. They're not on the airways every day, spouting things that perhaps are not helpful for their own interests. Yeah. And they have absolutely been willing to, meet, engage with myself, my colleague up in Quebec City, or with the ambassador when he's been in town.
Now, one of the things the ambassador has brought up, again, multiple media appearances, is the booze off the shelf. Okay. It wasn't lost on me. I was at your big 250th birthday party that you held here at Theatre St. James downtown, and the ambassador was actually in town. U.S. booze was served during that event.
Yes, it was.
And I wonder if you feel that the decision to take the booze off the shelves, if you think that goes beyond just annoyance, if you think that's a big holdup when it comes to the relationship between our two countries.
I mean, I think we've clearly identified it as a trade irritant. We have, imposed tariffs on Canada in certain sectors. We have in no cases taken a single Canadian product off the shelves. And so we don't see it as reciprocal. And so I think that's one of the things that really genuinely annoys the administration. And frankly, I kind of share that. I'm of the believer, look, I understand people can make choices when they go out to purchase something. I think that's something that they should be allowed to make the choice themselves. And by taking them off the shelves, you've sort of denied Canadians the opportunity to make that choice for themselves. I think there'll be plenty of Canadians who would happily pick up a bottle of bourbon or a fine glass of California wine.
Consul General, can you stick around just a little bit longer?
Sure.
Let's do a little bit of traffic. I'm going to check in on traffic.
Montreal, the everyday and the extraordinary. The Elias Makos Show on CJAD 800.
Oh, some American music to wrap up the show. The Orwells, they're a good rock and roll band. We're here with Robert P. Sanders, Consul General at the US Consulate General in Montreal. And Robert, Consul General, I should say.
You can call me Robert.
Can we go to first name to wrap up the interview?
We've been in first names for 3 years.
So Robert, here to wrap up your 3 years here in the city. I really appreciate that you've come in. Where are you headed next?
Bogota, Colombia.
Bogota. Is this one other? You said you bid, right? So
I did. Yeah,
you bid on this.
Yes,
one.
I did bid on this. Yeah.
How do you view that next challenge for yourself?
I always balance a certain amount of excitement and caution, but also I don't try to have too many expectations. I like to kind of keep an open mind, but I'm really looking forward to it. I think everyone who I know who has been and I have never been raves about it, so I think I'm going to have a good experience.
So one of the things
It's Charles Barkley with Wayfair. It's outdoor season, and my patio set up, they'll be ready to play. That's where Wayfair wins. Patio seating, umbrellas, and grills, all delivered fast and easy. Shop wayfair.ca now.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Listen, and you're there for heart-wrenching knockouts.
World's biggest stage.
And breathtaking history-making triumph. 2026 FIFA World Cup. The knockout stage. Every match, every moment. Listen on TSN Radio. Join the Globe on the road to the July 19th final. 2026 FIFA World Cup. Stream it all live on TSN Radio. Available on iHeartRadio.
I wanted to get to is what things you believe Canadians should be paying attention to. And I brought up Ambassador Hoekstra before. You know, he's someone, he did a conversation with Vashi Kapelis, my colleague in Ottawa, just last week. And I wonder how you view, because you must also look at it. You must say, okay, here's what I'm hearing from Ambassador Hoekstra. And you must say to yourself, okay, here's some messages that I'm hearing from the ambassador that I'm paying attention to.
Yeah.
What do you think, whether it's Canadian politicians or Canadians in general, what are some of the messages, statements that you think, hey, everyone, we should be paying attention to this? What do you think when maybe some of the points that Ambassador Hoekstra has brought up that you feel are really important that we should be paying attention to?
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up his Sunday interview. I also did my homework and reviewed that as well. Yeah. But I think he had some important messages that people do get lost a little bit. You know, he really did say very clearly that the U.S. is open to doing business with Canada. You know, we are open, and he has talked repeatedly, as has other folks in the administration, about like, look, we're open to a deal. There is the possibility of doing so many things on so many issue areas, including the issues that are contentious between us, whether it's aluminum, whether it's steel, whether it's auto parts, whether it's uranium, whether it's energy, oil. And as Ambassador said himself, like, you know, we had a very good deal framework back in October that got derailed. And I think that can still happen. And I think that's the thing is, I think if I were to advise a Canadian politician,
as you see it, what derailed it?
I mean, I think we know what derailed it. It wasn't from Quebec. Let's just put it that way. It was from a neighboring promise.
Okay.
And that really did resonate quite poorly in the White House and administration for good reason. I agree. I think that was not an appropriate move for a subnational actor to be getting involved.
Derailed, and just a couple of days shy of July 1st, can USMCA, CUSMA, New NAFTA, whatever you call it, can it get back on track?
I think so, yes. I will say July 1st is not a magical date. It is just the date for which the review is supposed to take place. There is not an end date by which that has to happen. So I do. The ambassador has been clear that Canada is not super far along in these discussions. I am not privy to that. That is done at an incredibly high level. But I think that's seems to be the case. And but that doesn't mean it's not the possibility of a deal working out.
But it's interesting because I go back and forth. Like it's so clear to me that our economies are intertwined. That Canada, obviously, we need the U.S. You're a behemoth. We're very lucky to be next to the biggest economy in the world. But in a lot of respects, certainly seems like the United States needs Canada. You brought up aluminum. Like, I think a lot of people would say there's not a lot of replacements for Canadian aluminum. And we're a good actor on the world scene. We're not like some of these other countries that are keen on dumping and that kind of stuff, right? So, I just wonder how you view just how much the United States needs Canada.
Well, again, I think the ambassador also said that very clearly in his interview, that there are things we benefit from Canada. When we've heard things like, we don't need things from Canada, the reality is there are, in many cases, options. They may not be better options or the most cost-effective option that Canada could offer. But Alberta oil, sure, we take the most of your oil exports of any country in the world. It's very beneficial for Canada. We're the biggest investor in Canadian oil sector, energy sector in general. So it's very win-win there. But if we had to secure oil elsewhere, well, there are options out there. I think that's kind of the underlying message about necessity. Is there the possibility that we would have a great deal with Canada that would benefit both sides? 100%. 100%. And the ambassador is very clear on that.
The person that's going to be replacing you, and her name again is
Jennifer Nichols. Yeah.
Jennifer Nichols. What are you going to be telling her about Montreal?
We've had a lot of conversations. Definitely, we have a briefing book for her. She's talked to many folks here. She'll be bringing a family. She's getting ready to put her kids into school and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I've told her really well. I think the number one thing I told her, she's joining a fantastic team. We have a really fantastic team at the US Consulate. We benefit from our local employees. I think a lot of people don't realize how much of an embassy or consulate is actually made up of local hire employees. So there's a lot of Canadians who work in the U.S. Consulate, and many for many years. In fact, our colleague sitting across here has been with us more than 20 years, and there's others who've been more than 20 years. And honestly, they're the continuity, and they're the expertise, and they're the ones who help us not kind of put our foot in things and guide us in the right way. But they have that deep institutional knowledge, but they're also there's a great sense of camaraderie and teamwork and esprit de corps. And I look forward to coming to work every day.
I've told Duns people, like on LinkedIn, follow the U.S. Consul General in Montreal, because you guys are always posting job opportunities, and
right.
like who wouldn't want to work for for a pretty prestigious kind of place?
I think we've got a good work environment, and one of the things that's really interesting is we have a lot of employees who have come to Canada as immigrants, and many of whom worked for a U.S. embassy or consulate in their home country, and then have come to us again, which I think is a huge compliment. Yeah. Like they know us and they're seeking us out.
To wrap up here, what surprised you the most out of your 3 years in Montreal?
Oh, that's a really tough question. You know what I would say? Actually, probably what really surprised me most is how much of a Habs fan I became.
Oh, really?
Yes.
And you don't need to pander. You're leaving.
No, 100%. But I've never been a huge sports fan. Yeah. I mean, I come from a family, big sports fan, but I've never really been hugely into it. But I have to say, I'm kind of a diehard rabid Habs fan now. I have the app. I follow them. I have a couple of jerseys. I will be absolutely following them when I get to Colombia. I have to say, once you go to a game at Centre Bell, it's unlike anything else.
Well, it's what you hear when someone goes to the States and they go to a Red Sox game at Fenway Park. It's akin to that, right?
Yeah, there's certain iconic things, and that is absolutely Montreal's. And so I was fortunate enough to take myself to a few games over the course of this last year. I used to pick nights where you're like, oh, it's bobblehead night. I'm going to get a bobblehead. So I have a little growing collection of Habs memorabilia.
What will you miss the most? I don't know if it's a food item or something else. What will you miss the most out of her?
There's lots of things I miss. I mean, all things maple, fresh berries in spring and summer, the Habs, my barber. I really love my barber, but to not sound too cliche, I'm really going to miss the people, including my team.
Well, Robert, thank you so much for coming in this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate your time, and good luck on the next mission in Bogota, Colombia.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Robert P. Sanders, Consul General at the U.S. Montreal. And that's how we wrap up this edition of the Elias Makos Show. I want to thank Maxim Kadot producing this one. Andrew Malik in for Jay Farrar behind the board in Master Control. Thanks, fellas, for all the hard work. That's it for us today. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and we'll be back at it tomorrow.
You're listening to the Voice of Montreal.
News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
An iHeartRadio station.
This newscast is brought to you by Meilleur. This week, our whole chicken from Vallée des Cantons is only $2.99 per pound. Meilleur, the best kept secret in town.
Listen, and you're there for heart-wrenching knockouts.
World's biggest stage.
And breathtaking triumph. 2026 FIFA World Cup. The knockout stage. Every match, every moment. Listen on TSN Radio. Join the Globe on the road to the July 19th final. 2026 FIFA World Cup. Stream it all live on TSN Radio. Available on iHeartRadio.